Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Nighttime Show. Today we have our head writer, Matt Walker. I'm the voice of the Nighttime Show, Mike Black. We have a very special guest, the executive producer of Cosmos, creator of Salem, writer and producer of Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and creator of Enterprise, Brannon Braga. And now, the host of the Nighttime Show, a man who no hugs can be enough for, Mr. Stephen Kramer Glickman.
Yes, I need constant hugs. What's going on? How are we doing? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah? We're all very excited. We have a guest today that I think we've all been a fan of for a very long time. How you feeling, Matt? Are you ready?
I am so excited.
Matt's been prepping for this his entire life.
My entire life.
His entire life.
Literally my
Matt's
entire
face.
life.
He's got a lot riding on this. It's really, there's no pressure. Mike, how are you feeling? Are you feeling in the game?
I'm very good. I wrote home, told everyone back home about this.
Terrific.
They're just pleased as punch for me. They don't know what it means, but they know it's a big deal to me.
Right.
So they're very happy.
Well, let us welcome our guest for today, Brannon Braga. How we doing? Hey, buddy.
Doing good.
Wow.
Doing good.
Thank you so much for being with us. It's such a big deal for us. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Please, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into this business, and what inspired you to get into it?
Well, I started, I was in film school at UC Santa Cruz because I couldn't get into UCLA. And it turned out to be a very good program. And I didn't know what I was going to do when I actually didn't graduate. I couldn't fulfill the math requirement. But
that makes me feel so much better about my math skills right now.
Especially from a guy who went on to make all kinds of science shows.
Yeah.
Even better.
you know.
But were they all way over budget because of that?
Yeah, because exactly, I couldn't do the math. But I wanted to be a filmmaker. You know, television was not really in my mind at all. I wanted to write and direct movies, but there was
who were some of your influences coming up?
I mean the usual suspects. I loved Roman Polanski's movies.
Yeah.
I loved Alfred Hitchcock movies. Any kind of horror. I was a huge horror fan.
Really?
You know?
What kind of horror stuff?
Oh, all horror. I mean, my first horror experience was when I think I was 6 years old. I saw a movie called Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That was way back in the 70s.
That was the 60s
The original
version
one,
of it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Joan Collins was in it or something.
Yeah.
It was like a
They were all vignettes.
vignettes.
Right?
Yeah. And I fell in love with horror then. You know, I had formative experiences like seeing Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, when I was 13, and seeing the audience's reaction.
That's like the perfect age for that movie, too.
Yeah. I was either going to
just enough.
I was either going to become a filmmaker or a serial killer. But
why not both?
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, he hasn't been caught yet.
Yeah.
He's very successful.
We don't know.
But I saw this poster. I just happened to walk by this poster that was kind of promoting an internship program through the Academy of TV Arts and Sciences. They do the Emmys every year. And it looked prestigious, and there was a television script writing category. There were like 29 categories. And I thought, well, I'll apply to this. And I applied, and I was a finalist, and I didn't get it.
How old were you when this happened?
I think it was 24.
Okay.
Wow.
And then when I was 25, I applied again, and I got it.
Wow.
And they just happened to place me on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, my God.
And this was toward the end of the third season, where the showrunner and my mentor, Michael Piller, had really just cleaned house. Okay. There were no writers left except for one, a staff writer named Ron Moore.
Now, were you a big Star Trek fan at the time?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I was more of a horror guy.
All right.
I liked, I mean, there were certain science fiction films I liked.
Sure.
I'd never, to be honest with you, I'd never seen Star Trek up to that point.
I was kind of the same way, actually, at that point. before Next Generation came
Well,
out.
yeah, actually, I did. I had seen a couple of the movies, like the Whales movie.
Yeah.
I really liked.
Star Trek
And
4.
Wrath of
Voyager.
Khan was great.
Sure.
And I saw the pilot to Next Generation, but it was such a kind of a turnoff.
I think I was too young for Wrath of Khan because when the earworm thing happened, I was like, I'm out. That's too much for me.
Yeah.
I was not ready
That was
for
a
that.
hell of an
at all.
earworm.
Yeah.
It was pretty scary.
So I was in the right place at the right time. I fell in love with Star Trek.
Yeah.
I saw it the way I saw it with kind of as an anthology show, where you can tell any kind of story, anything, in any genre, actually, that you could think up. I think one of the great inventions Gene Roddenberry brought to that show was the holodeck. A lot of people don't like the holodeck.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
great.
thought it was very visionary. I mean, it was virtual reality in 1987 when that was just really being touched upon.
Yeah, he touched on the holodeck in the Star Trek animated series.
Oh,
There's an
really?
episode where there's actually basically a holodeck in the animated series, which, being the Star Trek nerd that I am, I remember. But that was sort of like the first version of that had ever been seen. And then I think it was written about in a couple of the books in the 70s. They had references to it.
Yeah.
And then, but when you first see it in action,
Oh,
it was so great on that
cool.
show. Like, even from the opening time when you're going in, there's people on horseback and whatever in the pilot. And then later on with all the detective stories they used to do in
Yeah,
there
it
and all that
just
stuff. It
opened
was
it up so
the Sherlock
much.
Holmes stories you were able to do with the holodeck was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And when I walked into those offices for the first time as an intern, I never could have predicted that 15 years later I would be turning the lights off on the whole television franchise at that time. So
Jeez.
I was there for 15 years.
Oh my god.
I never left the building.
That's outrageous.
Just moved in.
That's amazing.
But it was a pretty massive empire by the time you got to that point, too. Though.
Actually, when I got there, the finale, the Borg finale, was just about to air, and that's when things started to catch fire for that show.
Yeah.
Really kicked in. Yeah.
And I saw the pilot. I didn't really like the show
Right.
when I saw it when it first came out in 1980. I think it was 87.
Yeah.
But people would say, "Hey, you should watch Next Generation. It got really good."
right.
Yeah, there was a point where it seemed like Picard changed.
Well, he went from
Like,
when it first started off,
from
it was like every
grumpy-
episode they'd have problems and he'd be like, "All right, I surrender."
yeah.
Every episode, it was like he was like, "I give up the ship." Just like on kind of the early parts of Voyager, where Captain Janeway's like, "All right, self-destruct, let's do it, blow up the ship." It was sort of like the opposite reactions there. But
Yeah, but there was a point where he really became.
he kicked
like,
in and became a great
kick-ass
leader
captain, and I was
Yeah.
like, I haven't given this show a chance in a while. I'm going to start again, and then it just got better and better and better.
What was the relationship like between the show and the network? Was the network always behind the show the whole time, or did you guys ever feel pressure from them?
Well, it was a syndicated show at that time. The first network Star Trek was the original on NBC, but Next Generation was syndicated. So there was a huge syndication market at the time.
Now, was that sort of affiliated with UPN in some way?
No, UPN.
That was the later shows?
That Voyager launched that network.
Okay.
But we had a studio, Paramount Pictures, but they didn't quite know what to make of Star Trek. I mean, we never really got notes from anybody.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I got spoiled when I went out into the real world. It was brutal.
Yeah, that's a huge change.
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure
never
from
got
going
any
from
notes.
something like that.
I mean, I could count on one hand the times we got notes on
That's awesome.
in the 15 years I was there.
Now, the cast on that show was so good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, looking back, it's almost sort of like fortuitous that you were able to get all those people in one place at one time. Because I look back, I recently went through a binge I finished about a year ago where I rewatched every episode of every series of Star Trek and all the movies. Rewatched them. It took me 9 months of
Not a
watching
joke. This is a real
like
thing.
4 or 5 episodes a night. Like that was all he was doing. Like every time they asked me, they're like, if I wasn't doing stand up, I was watching Star
I'd be like, Star Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek.
You probably know more about the show
So
than
I watched them all. And when I went back and I rewatched everything, I was like, how did Brent Spiner not win every award for acting ever? Like, I was like, this guy's
so amazing.
He should have won Oscars for Generations. He should have won an Oscar for First Contact. Should have won a couple Emmys for what he did on Next Generation. Like the breadth of what he did with multiple characters. He's singing. He's doing things where he's like the stone-faced android. He's laughing when Q's around, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was amazing.
Well,
the work
look
he
at
did.
his arc from the very first Next Generation pilot to where he was by the end of the whole series. It's really an incredible body of work.
Yeah.
You must have a good relationship with him because you brought him back for Threshold, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, short-lived science fiction show.
And he was in Enterprise, in one of my favorite story arcs in Enterprise.
Yeah, like a 3-part episode.
Yeah. Explaining the origins of why Klingons look the way they do. And I have to thank you for that because as a fan, I was like, why do they look that way? And then Enterprise is such an underrated show by Star Trek fans, I have to say. Because that one, when I rewatched everything, I was like, why was I not more into the show when it was on? Because watching it now, I was like, this show's incredible. And they tie up all the loose ends that were left out there by all the other series. They go back and they're like, let's explain why this is the way it is. And I was like, thank you for that. Because I always, like, you never really knew why Klingons looked the way they did. And then you explained it, and it makes so much perfect sense. It's awesome. So,
yeah, I mean, speaking of Emmys, The Next Generation was nominated for Best Dramatic Series for an Emmy one year, which was kind of like a great acknowledgement because it's a syndicated science fiction show.
Syndicated sci-fi.
Yeah, they don't get stuff like that ever.
No, it was, and it was television. Of course, was very different then. There were 3 networks, 4 with Fox, I guess. But we lost to a show called Picket Fences, a David Kelly show.
I remember that show.
Oh, wow.
And that show's not. I mean,
Nobody remembers it. Yeah.
This is the first time it's been mentioned in the last 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still bitter.
Was that Tom Skerritt on that show?
Sure.
I think it was.
For their sake, let's say.
And I think Lauren
let's say it
Holland.
was, absolutely.
Well,
So you just recently watched all the episodes.
Yes.
And yes.
So
by
if
the
you
way,
have any questions about
Yes.
Star Trek,
I have some questions.
If you have questions, he'll answer them.
you can ask Matt.
Please.
First of all, thank you for the comments about Enterprise. I loved that show, and there were some issues with it.
The theme song.
It wasn't perfect. Yeah, that's one of them. But
That's the only issue I have with it. That's the only one.
I kind of liked it. It was a guilty pleasure,
you
but
secretly,
I kind of liked
you
it.
secretly
They
had a
changed
tear in
it.
your eye whenever.
I think it was either season 3 or season 4. We did like a remix of it.
embarrassing.
And actually, in the alternate universe episode, you went with a different theme that opened it.
Yeah, well, that was the
Amazing.
episode
That's
where
funny.
where Zefram Cochrane blew the Klingons away
Yeah,
with a
it was so
shotgun.
awesome. It was great.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, the Vulcans.
The Vulcans when they came in,
yeah.
and it also had the T'Pol versus Hoshi fight, which was the hottest scene in the history of Star Trek. By the way, hottest scene ever.
But what my question for you is, what's your favorite of all the series? If you have.
Okay, I love them all for different reasons. Because like my favorite characters are Quark and Q. Maybe it's just because I like people start with Q, but those are my 2 favorite characters. But I would say Next Generation is probably my first one that I love the most because I've seen it the most. That's the one they still air on BBC America, and I still watch
What's
it.
the first Star Trek you got into?
I watched the original series when I was a kid. It was in reruns late at night on Channel 5 here in LA, and I used to watch it when I was like in elementary school, but I didn't really get it that well. And then Next Generation started right when I was in like the 8th grade. Yeah. So it was like the right age to really start watching.
It's been around long enough that people have there are a lot of people who Enterprise, for instance, or Voyager is their show.
I think the first one you watch tends to be the one you like the most.
Exactly.
I remember watching Star Trek Next Generation where like my dad was so obsessed with Star Trek Next Generation that he had his desk in his office built to look like Picard's desk.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he had giant statues of things all over his office, and it was one of those things like as a kid you're like, that's just like kind of, you even as a kid you're like, this is kind of crazy, like this is like a crazy thing. But then like as a grown-up, I've gone back and I've watched Next Generation, I watched Voyager and Enterprise, and I'm a huge Scott Bakula fan, so getting a chance to watch him as part of that universe, so cool. And we went back for when me and Mike worked together on a project, and we watched Deep Space Nine and went back and just like took it all in. And but but probably Next Generation. Like when you go back and you rewatch it, there's like amazing stuff that happened on that
characters
show.
brings up
on those shows.
Those actors.
Such a stupid question, but on the final episode of Enterprise, were you tempted to have Scott Bakula leap out and into someone else on a different show? Was it? Not at all.
No, we definitely talked about that.
If he woke up in bed next to Bob Newhart's wife, or something like that.
Well, I like what they
would've
did
been
with
amazing.
the end of Enterprise, actually. The flashback to the episode with Riker and he's having the moral dilemma. The only problem is that Riker was visually like he didn't look, because I went back and I rewatched that episode from like 12 years before, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, well, he looks much different now. Like I get what they were doing. It's just he looked a lot older at that time.
Riker
It was really cool, though.
Well, it was
Craft,
actually
craft services weren't kind.
Well, they were very
it
good.
actually looked like he'd eaten the Enterprise.
I like that we were all too afraid to say it. We were all just like,
that's so good.
I love Jonathan, but it's interesting that final episode. It was kind of a clever premise, which is it was really an episode of Next Generation.
Yes.
Looking on the holodeck at Enterprise, but the fans didn't really respond to it, and it was the only time Scott Bakula ever got pissed off.
Really?
Really? Wow.
What did he get upset? How did he get upset?
The whole cast did, actually, because they wanted the finale to be an Enterprise finale. And
that makes sense.
And
I can see that.
I was trying to do
It was a Next Generation flashback.
Well, we were trying to. It was a Rick Berman and I just finished 15 and 18 years respectively. We wanted to bid farewell, a Valentine to all of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but so I understand why they were upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you were working on Next Generation, where's the timeline with Gene Roddenberry as far as him being around or him not being around? When did he pass?
I did meet Gene. He wasn't particularly well at the time I met him, and he was not super involved. He was kind of phasing himself out. I can't remember the exact year that he passed away. It probably was 91, 92.
Oh, so it was after you were working on this.
Yeah,
I think it was 92.
Yeah, I'd been on.
Might have been 93 because I remember I was in high school at the time. No, actually, no, it was before 93. It had to be 92 because I wore a black armband to high school that day when he passed. I remember.
Yeah, it was a couple of years. I was a couple of years in on the show. I did go to his funeral. It was
Now there was it's kind of lore now about an edict that he left where the human characters couldn't fight anymore.
Yeah, there were several edicts when I got there. No time travel.
Okay.
No dream sequences.
Wow.
Certain things, rules of which I immediately broke. But you know what was interesting though, because the no time travel thing, as I recall, had something to do with him just thinking it was just a step too far. It's just not really that believable. Of course, City on the Edge of Forever, being one of the best Star Trek episodes of all time.
Yeah.
But it forced some writers like myself to be inventive. So the first time travel story I did was about the crew caught in a repeating loop of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's like I got away with it because it wasn't.
tips.
It is
Not
time travel,
really
but
time travel, but it is.
but it is
Yeah.
time travel.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had in the character conflict thing. A lot of writers chafed under that edict because you know where's the drama? Well, go find another show to work on because one of the premises of Star Trek is that humans got their shit together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the conflict is through their interaction with aliens, who are the metaphors for our problems today.
Yeah.
And eventually we would muster up some conflict between the characters in Deep Space Nine, which, for the record, I did not work on. I just did Voyager, Enterprise, and
Sure.
Next Gen. But it got more conflictual as time went on. But I actually really embraced the idea that these people respected each other and they didn't get into petty fights about stuff. If Picard got in an argument with someone, it was something big.
Hey guys, you got to check this out. There's this new app that I'm using, and I'm obsessed with it. It's called YoShirt, and you can get it. Yeah, you can get it on your phone. You got to try this thing. It's super, super cool.
What does it do?
Okay, so YoShirt is the app for creating one-of-a-kind apparel and accessories on your iPhone.
What?
Yes, I mean, you can take a picture of a comic book cover, your favorite comic book, Mike, okay? Take a picture of that, one of your famous Instagram photos that you do of, like, action figures fighting each other.
Photography.
Take one of those pictures, and you can turn it into a T-shirt you can wear at Comic-Con or at any con or at anything, any day of the week.
It doesn't even have to be
It doesn't have to be a Comic-Con. It could be anything.
Can you take a picture of an ex-con and get that on a shirt?
You can put an X-Con on a shirt. What else can you put on a shirt? Ex-girlfriend you can put on a shirt. Anything with an X.
Shaka-Con?
Shaka-Con you can put on a shirt. Whatever you want. This thing is incredible.
Now, when you put it on the app, is that it? You just print up a boring old picture?
No. You can do all sorts of stuff to customize your designs with stickers, backgrounds, text, whatever you want. You can share your creations.
Shirts. You can only
Just
do
shirts?
shirts.
No, there's so many different. You gotta check out this app, guys.
What else besides shirts?
There's sweaters, there's leggings, there's underwear, there's tote bags, there's socks.
Now, a lot of these apps try to rip people off. You give them your financial information.
Oh, no. These guys are incredibly secure, super fast. It's a secure checkout with Apple Pay. All right? Now, this is a quick note to our listeners, because I know we have listeners all over the world. YoShirt ordering and shipping is currently only available in the U.S. and Canada. But if you are a fan of YoShirt and you're in another country, we're going to be getting cool, like, YoShirt stuff. And if you let us know that you live in another country, we'll ship it to you as a gift. You are sure to impress your friends and your family when you express yourself with YoShirt. Guys, don't forget to check it out. It's a super cool app, YoShirt.com. That's YoShirt.com, YoShirt.com.
Tell all your friends.
Can I ask you a question? And you might have to be very diplomatic in your answer, but what do you think about J.J. Abrams blowing up Vulcan?
Well, I thought it was very clever. I mean, he was able to reboot the franchise and kind of create an alternate universe.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me at all, and I thought that first movie was a blast.
It bothers me, but that's okay.
Well, it bothered the guy I saw it with, who, my best friend, who is a huge Star Trek fan. He was furious about the whole.
I was like,
the whole thing.
he made a universe where Tuvok never gets to exist, and that bothers me.
Well, but
we don't know for
it's
sure.
an alternate. It's a parallel universe that kind of went off in its own.
Sure.
And
I like that it doesn't negate anything that happened in the Star Trek.
No, it
we
actually,
know,
if you really think about it, has nothing to do.
Yeah, it's
Right.
separate.
So when you
Right.
get into, if you want to get deep into fan stuff,
Sure.
what's canon and what's not,
Yeah.
and is J.J. Abrams' alternate reality canon? Well, your answer will probably lie. Go to a Star Trek convention. Are people dressed as those characters?
Yeah.
Not a lot of them. And I do the big Vegas convention every year.
Sure,
if you haven't
yeah.
been,
Yeah.
you should.
This is the 50th one, right?
This is the 50th anniversary.
We're totally going to go.
I think this is going to be my first one.
It's in August sometime.
Oh, we'll go.
It's like
That'd be
5
awesome.
days, but it's a trip. But the movie was. I thought it was great.
What did you feel about the second one?
I had more mixed feelings about the second one. I thought it was a little. Look, from a directing point of view, it was brilliant. The sound design on those movies. It's funny.
Oh, yeah.
I had asked. I think it was David Lindelof, who did the sound design. It turned out to be this guy. I can't remember his name, who's done the sounds for Star Wars. He invented all the sounds for Star Wars, and a whole bunch of movies that you're like, oh my god, he did that. He like created the sounds of our
Oh, sure.
our childhood and
I'm
adolescence.
forgetting his name, but I know it.
But
It's
anyway,
in my head.
the movie was extremely well made. I just found that it to be slightly pandering to a little cannibalistic, I should say. Pandering's on. We're a little cannibalistic, kind of doing rehashing Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
But this time, Kirk dies, and not Spock, but not really. It's just I'm not sure what the point was. You know. And by the way, the one movie that I don't think you touch is Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of the iconic one with the iconic character as a villain is Ricardo Montalban as Khan.
Also, and unless I missed something, I only saw the movie once. To me, the thing that fueled Star Trek II was Khan's personal vengeance against Kirk.
Right.
Yeah.
When that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no emotional connection in the movie,
Right.
so I don't think it was as successful. Having said that, it's a great cast.
Yes.
Really
Well,
good.
I felt like I'm a big J.J. Abrams fan, and I think he's a great guy and makes some really interesting movies. And when I went and saw Force Awakens, and I know we're jumping from Star Trek to Star Wars, but when I saw Force Awakens and in the first time I saw the movie and they killed off Han Solo at the end of the movie.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
If you care, you've seen it by now.
Yeah.
I was like emotionally depressed for I'm not kidding you, like 10 hours. Like after watching it, I was like that whole night I went home and I just felt like shit all night, and I was like, why are you messing with, like, you have so many things you can mess with, like why take, like, it's the same, and he does that a lot of times, and I don't know if it's just JJ or if it's just a thing that guys do when they make movies sometimes.
Now, Stephen, to be fair,
Yeah.
did you take Captain Kirk's death as hard?
You know what? But I was upset about that, and I was upset about like them blowing up Vulcan in the same way where it's like,
Yeah.
just invent a new fucking planet. Like, be
I don't care
be
about
extra
to
creative, make something else, and destroy that thing. Like, or kill off another character that is not like a legend, to us. Like, why? It seems very. The use.
So don't do anything dramatic, is what you're saying.
No. I mean, like that they kind of feel like they have to kill their darlings a little bit, or kill like their best things. I mean, like if they could have shot, like if he would have, if it wouldn't have been Han
killed
Solo.
Admiral Akbar instead.
Look, I'm not kidding you. When I saw Star Wars and they shot Chewbacca in the shoulder and he went down, he was like, "Oh, my shoulder." I didn't say that, but he said something. Right. When that happened, I was like, what are you doing? Like, everything in me was like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, the first time a stormtrooper hits something, it's Chewbacca. Really?
You're like, why are you shooting a character that I love? Like, I'm very much.
You're too protective. I'm
very protective, and I feel the same way about watching Star Trek. Is that when they introduce the character and they're like, "Oh, this is Khan," you're like, "No, it's not." Like, just make another thing.
Yeah.
Just come up with something else. You know who had no problem making other things is Michael. The guy from who did Next Generation, all the shows, Michael Westmore.
No, Michael Westmore, the alien.
Yeah,
the
like,
makeup effects.
He had no problem creating new and interesting creatures every time.
That's I guess what I meant by the second movie was a little too cannibalistic to me, because this is just me. Star Trek is about moving forward, and not just a constant nostalgic experience.
Sure.
And that's essentially what you're saying.
Yeah.
What's new in the frontier?
Yeah, like just keep exploring, keep showing us new and amazing things. Like,
I felt after too that we just talked about in the first one how they brilliantly set it up where it's this alternate timeline, and it's like you've already taken all that effort to make it different, and now you're going to retread for about 2/3 of the next movie stuff that you've already done.
Yeah, completely.
Now, I have not to be too much like that SNL sketch with William Shatner where people ask him a bunch of nerdy questions. There's an episode of Voyager where you have The Rock on, and he fights 7 of 9 in an arena, and it's pretty cool.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
And I'm wondering, did that come together where you had this idea for a story where 7 of 9 was going to fight a giant guy, and you're like, hey, let's get The Rock? Or was like you were both on UPN at the time, SmackDown and Voyager, were they like, hey, we got The Rock if you ever want him for Star Trek? And you're like, what can we do with The Rock? Like, how did that come together?
Well, one of my favorite movies growing up, I shouldn't say one of my favorite, a movie that influenced me was Rollerball.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Love Rollerball.
James Caan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to do a Rollerball-like story, that had great action and some social commentary. And when the script came out, yes, the UPN had the wrestling, and they wanted The Rock to get into acting. It may have been his first acting.
It might have been his first thing, yeah.
That's so cool. That's cool.
And he was just the right choice. He was great.
He's great.
He's very, really good. He's actually a pretty good actor, and he's a very charming guy.
Yeah. I just rewatched.
By the way, he likes to be called Dwayne, not The Rock.
Oh yeah. I'm sure. Wait,
Sorry, Dwayne. I don't want to offend Dwayne, actually, so I apologize.
He's behind you, man.
I just rewatched the movie that he did with John Travolta. That it was the sequel to Get Shorty, I think. Do you remember that?
Oh,
movie?
I saw that in the theater. I forget the name of it, but I saw it in the theater when it came out.
I just rewatched it. He's in that, and he's hilarious.
I loved him in San Andreas.
Yeah, that's a really fun, crazy thing to watch.
I
too.
love that movie.
Oh god,
It had good. It was fun.
brutal too. Like people are dying and buildings are falling on
Disaster
people.
movies are fun. It's
They're
fun to watch.
They paid off. The earthquake sequences were great.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you
really
seen? What have you seen recently? Is there any movies you've seen recently that you're a fan of?
It's like asking for a restaurant recommendation, but I'm blanking out.
No.
But
like, did you see? Did you watch Force Awakens? Did you see
Yeah,
Star Wars?
of course I did.
How did you feel about that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a blast. I mean, I had some similar feelings about Han Solo. I thought he was such a vibrant aspect of that movie. I would have liked to have seen him in the next one.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I get that.
I thought it captured just the perfect balance of. It felt like a Star Wars movie. You know,
It really did. Yeah.
They did it. They did it right on every level.
Now, do you have any cool memorabilia that you took home from all this time? Like, what do you have at home?
Question.
You know, I am so regretful that I didn't get a box of phasers or something.
Oh man.
That it was a Christie's auction house did a Star Trek auction a few years ago.
Yeah.
Where did you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were getting like Picard's
Just
flute from the movie,
ridiculous.
the Interlight.
That's a
went for like
great-
$40,000.
Oh my god! That's
And
so
I
cool.
could have grabbed that.
You could have had all that.
tons
Yeah.
of
I could have had it. The only
If
thing
I were you, I'd have had a whole armory in my house of just different weapons and
exactly.
flutes and all sorts of stuff.
The only thing I grabbed was a severed Borg head. There was an episode where the Borg Queen was decapitated.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And that's in my office right now. As a matter of fact.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would have that on the front lawn just to ward off other burglars and stuff.
Scarecrow, Scareborg.
And
Now-
who's to say? You wrote the show. You're the executive producer. Just go buy a bunch of flutes. Put them on eBay.
Brannon Braga.
This is Captain
That
Picard's
is
flute.
the way to do it. So there you go.
Fraud.
Did you get a lot of pushback? I know there's issues that that were known with the uniforms, especially Next Generation. They actually called the Picard maneuver when he always pushes uniform down. Did you take that into account for things you did later on in Voyager and then in Enterprise?
Yeah.
You know who else did that? Yosemite Sam. He'd pull his uniform.
Did he really?
Yeah. He'd get right when he was getting ready to,
That's right.
draw or whatever. Yeah.
Draw.
No, but over the years, the uniforms got perfected. They were really uncomfortable jumpsuits initially, and then they went to the two-piece thing. The only real costume that was kind of difficult and controversial was Seven of Nine's costume.
Yes.
Trying to justify why this woman is wearing essentially a Vegas showgirl outfit with high heels.
God bless her.
yeah.
I was able to justify it.
So was I.
When I watched it.
It was a dermoplastic garment, meaning it was repairing her body.
Yeah.
That was the
Somehow making it better
Yeah.
than it already was. So, improving on perfection.
What was your relationship like? Let's just go through some cast people. Can we talk about? Did you have relationships with any of the people that you worked with? Can we talk about cast people that you worked with?
Yeah.
I'm stuttering at that point. Is that
Did you
right?
talk to the cast member? Yes, he
Yes,
talked to them.
Yes, he knew who they were.
Is there a surprise guest coming?
No. I just let's
It's
talk.
LeVar Burton.
Let's talk a little bit about Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
What was that relationship like?
I think this is just my perception. Patrick is a brilliant actor, and he was brilliant. I mean, I always say a Star Trek show is only as good as its captain, and he played a great captain. But I think he looked at this 25-year-old fledgling writer writing his dialogue, and I don't think he really knew what to make of me. Right. As the years went by, we eventually developed a good relationship. I think I wrote the first episode he directed. But initially, I don't think we really didn't have any kind of relationship. I ran into him at a Star Trek convention in London about 3 years ago, and he couldn't have been nicer.
He's
well,
a really
by his own admission, he said he was very strict and very like hardcore in the first season or so, and then kind of lightened up after that.
Yeah.
Did you experience any of that? Or?
Well, look, I was terrified to even talk to him. I mean,
sure.
I did.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, the cast members I became friendly with were Frakes and Brent Spiner.
So the
And I
least
still
terrifying cast members.
stay in touch with
Have you ever
Brent.
me and Brent Spiner did a musical charity event together where we sang show tunes together.
Oh, nice.
I love that guy. He's a very talented singer.
Yeah,
Incredible.
He's very good.
yeah, he is.
Yeah,
Where
was
that?
It was at
The M Bar, right?
You were there, right?
I wasn't there for that one.
Were you there?
No.
It was at
you invited me.
I think I did. It was at this place here in Hollywood. It was like a Catalina Bar and Grill. That's what it was. The Catalina,
Not the Catalina wine mixer.
not the Catalina wine mixer, which, by the way, is big for helicopters. It was this great place called Catalina Wine Bar or something, and we were performing a charity for children with autism and Down syndrome, and it was like a big charity event. He was on the charity event, and so was I, and so was Jason Alexander, and the
Who was
best
great
part,
in Star Trek Voyager, by the way.
amazing. By the way,
He's a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh, yeah.
Jason and Katie Seagal was on there as well.
Wow.
Who's a very talented. It was a great night.
It's a huge
It was-
deal.
What were
it was a
you
big
doing
deal.
there?
I was singing. I was one of the singers on the show.
All these people with huge.
I don't know. We
credits.
were all singing Disney stuff.
Is that when you did the Under the Sea mashup with Somewhere Up There?
No,
Or the
no.
Somewhere That's Green?
It wasn't that night. It was I sang an Elton John song. That's when That's when Elton's people invited me to meet him, and
Oh, cool.
and he kissed me on the cheek.
Because he was, I don't know if you
real
know this, but
thing that
Steven
happened.
actually was Shrek in Shrek the Musical on Broadway. So he actually can sing. Like,
I did it. Well, I played Shrek for DreamWorks in Shrek the Musical for 2 years, helping them to workshop and get the show ready for Broadway, and then I left to come out and do Big Time Rush on Nickelodeon for like 5 years, a kid TV show. But I continue doing the musical stuff, like whatever I can. I'll try to do a song or do something and something.
Yeah,
you know?
that's awesome.
But yeah, it was Brad Ellis, who's the musical director of Glee. It was him, he put the night together, and it was me, Katie Seagal, Brent Spiner, and Jason Alexander to close the show. And Jason Alexander came out on stage in a tuxedo with a fanny pack, and he had a bright pink fanny pack on his side, and we were like, "What the fuck is going on with this fanny pack?" And we said to him after the show, I go, "That's really funny with the fanny pack." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And we go, with the fanny pack, it's funny. It's like a funny bit. And he goes, "This is where I keep my keys and my wallets. And they're very, very helpful." And he was not joking. He was very serious about the fanny pack. But yeah, it was ridiculous. And then Brent Spiner, I think, sang something from like Miss Saigon or something. The guy's amazing. He's got an amazing voice.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a nice night. What about LeVar Burton? What was LeVar like? He seems like he'd be a nice.
Oh, LeVar is great, and I always thought he was one of our better directors. He was a very talented director, and I love LeVar.
he directed on Enterprise a lot, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried to hire him on other things, but he's never available. LeVar was great.
Let's talk about Star Trek Voyager. On Star Trek Voyager, you had Kate Mulgrew, who is killing it right now on Orange Is the New Black.
Yep.
She's amazing, such a talented,
Very happy for
phenomenal
her.
People. What was she like to work with?
Well, you probably know that she wasn't the original Captain Janeway. We cast Geneviève Bujold as Captain Janeway. I was a huge Bujold fan because I loved the movie Coma, and I loved I can't remember the Alan Rudolph Choose Me, and she was in a bunch of great movies. And I remember my partner Rick Berman saying, "This is a huge mistake. This woman's never done television before." I think she shot for 2 days before as Captain Janeway. And I think there's one of the DVD sets might even have
Has
those.
a clip from that, I think. Yeah.
It was a disaster. It was bad.
Well,
she wasn't right for it.
I recall hearing also that the Bionic Woman was
Lindsay Wagner?
Yeah, that she was up for it at one point. Is that true?
That's not true.
Oh, okay. Someone lied to me.
Someone lied to you, buddy.
You know, I certainly don't. I wasn't. Maybe I wasn't aware of it, but I.
Oh, okay.
But Mulgrew was always in the running, and she came in, and she kind of. You can't imagine anyone else playing the role.
Oh, God,
she's so great.
So great.
Yeah.
We're really good friends with Tim Russ, who was on the show. He's such a cool guy.
I have dinner with Tim from time to time. I run into him on Larchmont all the time.
Okay. A funny thing, we met Tim Russ and he was with his daughter at this event we were at, and we talked to his daughter, and she said she's never seen an episode of Star Trek, and I was like, you have to. I mean, her father was also in an episode of Next Generation. He was in the movie Star Trek Generations. Great actor. That happens a lot in Star Trek, where you have somebody and they're in like a minor role somewhere, and then like 3 years later they're a regular on the series in other parts. Like it seems like people tend to pop up a lot.
We always liked him. We always liked him.
I like that you brought up Generations, because that gets us into talking about
the death of Captain Kirk.
Yeah, so two of my favorite people to talk about, William Shatner and Leonard.
You have the
Nimoy.
best William Shatner story.
Do you mind if I tell you my William Shatner story? Because I have one. Do you have a story about William Shatner?
I'll think while you're talking.
Okay, I'm going to tell you my story about William Shatner. So we shot Big Time Rush, this show I was on for like 5 years. We shot that at Paramount on stage 27 and 28, which is where they shot some of Star Trek was shot on our stages and shot, they shot all over Paramount. I actually got to go. This is going to be kind of a weird story, but I got to go with my grandmother and my grandfather, who have both passed on, to Paramount Pictures when I was 8 years old, to go to the set of Family Ties. That was like the big deal.
That's a big deal. Yeah,
it was a big deal, right? And the reason we got to go is because my grandmother's brother was the insurance guy who created the insurance for Gene Roddenberry's brain, for his brain to be insured. The guy he was the same guy who had insured Liberace's hands,
Fred Astaire's legs,
Madonna's boobs,
a bunch of other people. But that's what he did. He was like he
was a body part insurance guy, I guess.
Right. So, long story short, we're there. I'm there taping the show. I go outside, and William Shatner is sitting outside on a golf cart, and I go, "Oh my God, it's William Shatner! I got to go over and talk to him. This is amazing." And I walk over and I go, "Mr." in front of everyone from the cast, right? That's all in my show. I'm like, "Mr. Shatner, I'm such a big fan. It's really cool to meet you. I came to this when I was 8 years old. My grandmother's brother made insurance. And he's like, what? And I'm like, you're the best. Is it okay if I get a picture with you? And he goes, no, meeting me's enough.
And then drove away.
And then he walked away, like got into his golf cart and drove away. Right? Yeah. And I was like, shit. And I turn around and the entire cast of my show has watched this happen. And for the next 4 years, they would turn to me and be like, I'd be like, hey, let's all get a picture. And they'd be like, no, meeting us is enough. They just give me shit for it. Right. Okay. So years go by, and I'm with my mom at the this horse park in Burbank, the Equestrian Center, and they're having a big charity event. And who's the host for the night? William Shatner. Okay. And so we're like, wow, this is going to be so cool. My mom's really excited because William Shatner's there. And the night ends, and we go outside, and he's sitting in his car with the car running, and he's texting on his phone. And my mom goes, I'm going to go tell him that he did a great job tonight hosting the event. And I go, Mom, he's probably not the best. She's like, we'll just go over and say quick hello. And I go, all right. And I go, hey, Mr. Shatner, this is my mom. We met on the Paramount lot. And he goes, uh-huh. And my mom goes, I just wanted to tell you, I think you did a wonderful job tonight. And I love the fact that you're always working so hard to make. And with that, he goes, yeah, takes his foot off the brake and drives away while she's still talking. I was like, my mom goes, don't ever tell anyone that story. Ever.
And by the way, those stories are much better than an autograph and a photo with him.
Oh,
by
it
far.
is. 100%.
So
because
much better.
I met Nimoy backstage at a show, and I he was like, "Oh, nice to meet you. Here, let me shake hands with you." Blah blah blah. It was super nice, but that was like, that's the end of the story. You know, like the Shatner. Anytime I have a Shatner story, anytime I have any sort of interaction with him, it's always something
the best.
horrendous and ridiculous. I embarrass myself.
Yeah, I when we were writing Generations, and we had a meeting. Shatner had read the first or second draft, and I don't remember specifically what was said, but I remember he was giving some notes, and I pushed back a little on a note, and he did the Kirk voice,
Really?
and like snapped me back like an ensign.
Whoa! Oh my god!
You know, a fan factoid. We had serious discussions with Shatner about doing Enterprise, about reprising Kirk on Enterprise, and we had a whole storyline worked out that we worked out with Bill, but he wanted too much money.
Really?
Yeah,
That's too bad, man.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
yeah. I felt that
I would have just sent back UPN. That's we only have so much. We'll go broke.
that was CBS.
if
I
we
mean,
give this-
he wanted a lot of money. I mean, it was, but I felt like I needed to do another Kirk story because his death was so lame.
It really was.
Yeah.
It was really lame. It was even lamer before we reshot it. But I've always thought that the captain should have died on the bridge, not under the bridge.
Yeah.
And in fact, I got to tell you, I've told this story before, but you know, when Ron Moore and I got asked to write the movie, one of the things we would talk about is like the poster should be Kirk's Enterprise and Picard's Enterprise locked in battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cut to 2 years later, it's them scrambling eggs together.
Yeah.
Didn't quite turn out
Not
the way
exactly
we
the same way, yeah.
but yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I totally get that.
And also, they had set up, I forget exactly which movie it was in, but they were on Kirk and Spock and McCoy were on a camping trip, and they were talking about death. And they'd asked him about something that had happened, and they were like, well, were you afraid?
That's the row your boat scene.
Yeah. And he goes, were you afraid that you were going to die? And he's like, no, because I know when I die, I'll be alone. And it was like, well, when he died, he wasn't alone. He was, with the captain of the next Enterprise and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a terrible movie, that fifth one. But
Yeah, that's part 5.
the row your boat scene is actually the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Because then they had the thing with the boots and he's flying up the cliff. and all
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It's-
I think that's what they were asking him if he was
Yeah.
afraid to die about. But yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, now we've come to the point in the show.
By the way, I want to say,
please.
I think one of the reasons you're bothered about Han Solo's death,
Oh yeah.
beyond just the character dying, and one of the reasons Kirk's death was lame, they were killed off by people you just met.
Yeah.
There was
It wasn't a long-standing enemy.
It
Yeah.
wasn't. It was. I think that as a result, they're lacking something. Like,
You know what? And you brought something up when you were talking about Kirk dying on the bridge that I felt equally about Han Solo, where it was like, I feel like if he dies, the Millennium Falcon should die with him. You know, like they're both of those characters are very much attached to the ship that they command,
Yeah. That's such a solid point. Because if it had been like the Emperor, or it had been like a character that we've seen, Boba Fett came back and blew him up or something, it'd be a different story.
Greedo
But-
gets revenge.
Yeah. Greedo just shows up like, I'll shoot second.
or if he flew the Millennium Falcon into a ship to sacrifice himself
exactly.
to save
That
Yeah,
would've been
some
great.
noble death like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But instead, we got like the guy from Girls,
His millennial son,
which is not fair.
Darth
By the way,
Millennial.
the
killed
only
him.
plot issue I had with that movie was Princess Leia says, "Bring our son home." It's like, but your son is Hitler.
Yeah.
Your son killed
son's a
billions of
monster.
people
Yeah.
just in this
Yeah.
movie.
Right.
So you
Just a
mean bring
minute
him
ago,
home
yeah.
to stand trial for war crimes?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. That was the only dialogue in the whole movie. I saw the movie 3 times, and the first time I saw it, I was upset about Han Solo. Second time I saw it, I like picked the whole movie apart and was like, the dialogue between Princess Leia, and Leia,
Like when I saw it, and I was like, "How did BB-8 get back up the staircase?
Yeah,
How did that happen?"
Exactly. How is he doing this? I don't get it. And we just had there was a bunch of things like that where I was like, the conversation between Solo and Leia in that in that movie. A lot of their conversation, I did not like the dialogue, and I thought it was weird and seemed off-putting and rushed, like way too rushed. And then the third time I saw it, I was like, I love everything that just happened. Like, I just really enjoyed it. I went and saw it in the biggest IMAX at the Chinese, and it was like in 3D, and it was just massive. And it's an epic. And I have a BB-8 that rolls around my apartment and beeps and
but doesn't go
boops.
upstairs.
Does not go upstairs. We do not have stairs in the place.
Now, to switch gears a little bit.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Hang on. We are going to jump to a little section that I like to call Stuff That's Not Star Trek.
Stuff that's not Star Trek.
All right, let's
Because I want to ask about Cosmos.
All right, hang on. Mission Impossible 2. You wrote the story from Mission Impossible 2. Is this what happened? Is this real?
Yeah, well, we ended up a story. Ron Moore and I actually did like 17 drafts of the script before we had to walk away to go to our day jobs on television. And Robert Town took over and did a fair amount of work to it. But we ended up getting story credit.
Did you work with Tom? Like
yeah,
we spent. Did he produce those, or he was a?
I don't remember.
He's a big part
I think
of them.
that's the movie he started his production company with.
Ron and I spent a lot of time with Tom working out the story of this movie. He was very, very involved in the development of the script.
That's so cool. He's a really interesting guy. Was he a good guy to spend time with?
Super smart.
Yeah,
super smart. Very nice, and just that we based that story on a movie called Notorious, an Alfred Hitchcock movie, which is my favorite movie.
Great film.
I love those Mission Impossible movies. They get crazier and crazier. And more.
I got out of all the Tom Cruise those movies, I still like the first one.
Yeah.
I actually thought the Brian De Palma one was really pretty great.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When he
John
takes
Boyd.
when he takes the face off at the end, and and then the rappelling from the ceiling stuff, all that stuff was so cool.
That was awesome.
I think it's the one that was closest to what the TV show was.
Yeah.
In terms of the feel of it.
But you know what? A lot of Mission Impossible fans had a problem in that the team was killed off in the first 10 minutes. So it was just him alone. But I thought, but he put together another team, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
he
good.
did. But I like the sequence, the dual version of what happened to the team from that first.
When John Voight's telling the story,
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
very sophisticated.
I really enjoyed
cinematically.
that. Yeah.
I thank you. I agree.
You wrote on 24. How long did you write on that the whole time, or just
No,
for some of it?
I did it the season 7 and 8, the final 2 seasons.
What was it like joining a show like that? That's such that pace of that show.
Well, a guy named Manny Cotto I had brought in on Star Trek, and he worked on it for the last 2 years of Enterprise, and actually ran the final season. And then he asked me to come over to 24 when I was done at Paramount, and I loved the show. I adhered to it immediately.
Such a good show.
Good, just really a good thriller.
Yeah, no, that cast is.
It was a blast to do.
They're so awesome. And Mary Lynn Ricecub, who is a stand-up comic, we perform.
Who's
with
done
her.
our show.
I think she's doing our show.
She's doing it.
She's a hilarious comedian. We work with her constantly in stand-up, and she was so amazing on that show.
Yeah,
too.
she was great. I went and saw one. She had a one-woman or some kind of comedy one-woman show at one time.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's a hilarious comedian. She performs at the Comedy Store like on a almost nightly basis. She's almost always.
So it's the Comedy Store in this place, really?
Well, yeah. There's the.
I mean, are they the competitors or they're?
The comics will work anywhere that we get the stage time. But I mean, there's a good. There's probably the big three
Those are the
clubs
two
in the center of Los Angeles. You got the Laugh Factory, the Improv, the Comedy Store. Then you also have the Ice House in Pasadena.
Right.
Is very well regarded. And then after that, there's a bunch of like other clubs, Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach.
Sure.
Then you get to certain other ones like the
Brea
J Spot is
Improv
more
and
niche.
The Irvine Improv.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a good 15 almost full-time comedy clubs in the Southern California area if you added everything up.
You got the main three are Laugh Factory, Hollywood Improv, and the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting the dynamics.
This is the Comedy Store.
No, this is the Improv.
This is Improv.
This is the Improv. Laugh Factory is on Sunset.
Yes. And so
Comedy
is the
Store is also on Sunset.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the comedy, the Improv is like, it's interesting. The shows they do at the Improv in the last few years are like really interesting, subversive, like strange, oddball type shows with like really interesting people. Bobcat Goldthwait has a show here every month that's like super strange and really cool, and they do that show. What's the show called where they give set list? They do Paul Provenza's set list here, which is a show where like comedians
it's improvised.
They have to improvise a stand-up set based on a set list that like pops up behind them on the screen during the show.
That's cool.
And then our show is here once a month, which is a live late night show that called the Nighttime Show. And so we do that here once a month with like some of the biggest comics in the world, and it's super
And that
fun.
one, like, they get to do their set, and then we kind of force improv onto them.
Yeah, we like force them into an
Force them into
awkward
doing awkward
situation,
things,
games and interviews, and we have usually a death metal band as our house band, and it's really fun. It's a really
nice.
It's a really good time. Let's talk about Flash Forward, which did you create this show? Were you a creator on the show?
Yeah, I did. I did. I wrote the pilot with David Goyer,
Oh, okay.
who does
The
just
Batman,
did just
the
wrote
Nolan
bad
Batman
just
movies.
wrote the new Batman Superman movie.
Wow.
And we wrote the pilot and I produced the pilot, but then I was on 24 at the time, so I couldn't go beyond that.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Gottfried because let's be honest, who in their right mind would claim to be me if they weren't? I want to tell you about my hilarious podcast, Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast, right here on the Sideshow Network. Each week, me and my co-host, Frank Santopadre, talk to movie stars, comedians, singers, directors, and other entertainers about classic Hollywood. Sometimes they even answer us. If you didn't catch the name, that's Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast every Monday and Thursday, named by the Village Voice as the best podcast of 2015. Download, rate us, and subscribe on iTunes or check us out on SideshowNetwork.tv/Gilbert Gottfried.
Like I was looking through some of your credits and looking at Flash Forward and Threshold and Terra Nova and even now with Salem.
Well, those were all shows that only lasted one season.
Yeah, right. But they're all really interesting.
It's brilliant how you did that. How you got them,
But they're really
to each last one season.
I wish that was the plan.
But when you look at a show like Terra Nova and you're like, how do you put together a show like this where you're like, yeah, it's dinosaurs and it's people and
Well, it was a nightmare. It
that's
was a nightmare show to do.
How so? Because I'm a fan of that show. I thought it was a really cool show. And
Well, thanks for saying so. It was just a tough premise. It takes place it's futuristic people living in the past. So you have to make everything from scratch. There's just like literally nothing. It all has to be built, and the premise was challenging a little bit. And on a television budget, you just can't really do dinosaurs as well as you would like. But I thought the show found itself eventually, and I was kind of sad to see it go.
well, I love shows like that are like extremely. They like go way outside the box, and they're just Flash Forward was another show that was like way outside the box. It's like this is a show where people they know like 2 minutes of their future, and that's it. And everyone on Earth knows 2 minutes, and it's like starting like you start with that. Like that's like fascinating. What a fascinating way to start a show. And
Yeah.
same thing with 24. Like working on a show like 24 where it's all taking place in real time. They're very difficult shows.
Yeah, but those are the fun ones.
Yeah.
Those are fun ones.
That's so cool.
What shows are you watching currently that you're not involved in? Like, what do you like to watch?
I don't watch a lot of television. It's very.
Are you a fan of Treehouse Masters? Because that's my favorite show on TV right now.
I actually do like that show, and it's hard for me to sit and stare at a television. Like I spend a lot of time in the editing room, as part of my job, and it just feels like I just can't watch any more TV.
Yeah.
But I do watch a lot of reality TV. Like, of all things, I don't cook. I watch a lot of Food Network shows.
Really? Do you watch Chopped?
Oh, yeah, I love Chopped.
Chopked's a great show. Do you watch Cutthroat Kitchen?
I saw the new one last night.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
But I was a huge fan of a show called Restaurant Impossible.
Yeah. Love it. Robert Irvine.
He's
great.
He's great. Have you seen the ambush ones they're doing now?
Yeah. But Irvine is one of my best buddies now.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
He's so cool.
Oh, my God. Amazing.
I will watch any show where a British person yells at Americans to tell them to fix their restaurant. Kitchen Impossible, The Kitchen Nightmares, Restaurant Impossible. There was a baking one with some English woman who was yelling at people for a while. I watched that one too. Anything where British people yell at Americans, I'll watch. Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you ever watch Cupcake Wars?
Yeah.
Ever see Cupcake Wars? I was a judge on Cupcake Wars.
You were?
I was a guest judge.
Oh, that's
and I got
fun.
to eat 16 cupcakes in one day.
And by the way,
and
he's
then
kosher.
I died of diabetes.
Yeah. Look,
immediately.
Steven is kosher, and the first cupcake they gave him had barbecued pork on it.
Yes,
On
it
the
was a
cupcake. It
barbecue
was like-
pork cupcake on cream cheese. It was a cream cheese.
You ate it, right?
You know what? I pretended to eat it. I nibbled around it. It was really funny. I looked at the producer and I went, I can't eat this. And she went, just eat it. That was her actual words.
My favorite thing,
just eat it.
I went to visit
weirdo.
the set that day. My
Shut
favorite
up.
thing. We asked one of the people.
Hardcore at the Food Network.
Yeah, they're like, whatever.
Put it in your gullet.
Yeah.
My favorite thing was we were there, and there was like a woman who was like sort of assisting you that day. And we asked her like, "Oh, what other shows you worked on?" She's like, "Oh, I work on a lot of war shows." We're like, "Oh, really? Like stuff about like World War II or whatever?" She's like, "No, like Restaurant Wars, Cupcake Wars,
Cake Wars.
Cake Wars." And I was like, "Oh, that kind of
The
war
real
shows."
wars.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I love those kind of shows.
Yeah.
They always make me want to eat a bunch of cupcakes or cakes after I
Right.
watch them. Yeah.
Now, can we ask about Cosmos?
Okay, hang
I'm
on.
excited.
That's a special section.
Okay.
It's a very special section.
Matt just lit up like it was
Tell
Christmas
me when you're ready.
morning.
Are you ready? All right, it's time for a little section called "Is Pluto Still a Planet?" Is Pluto still a planet? Please tell us that Pluto is still a planet, because it was a planet when I was a kid, and I'm sad to see it go.
Science.
It's not a planet.
It's not a planet anymore.
Thanks to Neil deGrasse Tyson, host
Neil
of Cosmos.
Neil deGrasse
He's one of the
Tyson was
main
like,
guys.
Well,
"Fuck your planet." That's what he said. He's like, it's not a planet.
let's put it Pluto's still a Disney character.
Yes.
Oh man,
Pluto's still a dog.
But no, the New Horizon probe just passed by and got a really good look at it, and it does not appear. It has some planetary features, but it's still been downgraded.
I saw a great bumper sticker that just said, "Oh, come on, let Pluto be a planet."
That's so great.
So when Cosmos came up, how did that start? Because you're listed as basically creator of the show along with these people, right? Or was it under the Sagan Empire? Or?
No. Anne Druyan,
Okay.
who wrote the original with Carl, and was Carl's wife.
Yeah.
His wife. She wrote it. I directed.
Okay.
I was I directed, and executive produced.
That's such a great show.
How do you do?
I like that, Matt, that you said the Sagan Empire, which sounds like
It sounds- it's
villains
enormous.
from outer
There
space.
should be a Sagan
as
Empire.
It should,
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I have questions on that. So how do you, as a director?
Yes.
There's a lot of like flashback scenes, the history in it, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And then you also have things which are clearly all CGI done with the, like, say, the cosmic calendar. Like, when he's walking around, like, how do you physically shoot that kind of thing? Is it just him in front of a green screen reading some stuff, and then you have him walk around a little bit, and you
Well,
How
drop it all
much
in,
of
or-
that is an actual set? And how much of that is
the cosmic calendar was a very sophisticated virtual set, and we shot it on a really large green screen, like the largest green screen space I've ever seen, because I wanted to be able to have him walk long distance.
Yeah, because it's a huge
And
distance he walks.
and I was able to do. There was a technology that allowed me to see a rough composite of the cosmic calendar and him on it on a monitor. So I was it was like I was actually filming there.
Wow.
But it was very very complicated. I know, and I wanted to get up really high so he'd be really small. But yeah, it was a green.
Can I tell you like a funny thing about the first time I was watching a clip from Cosmos on my phone? A guy I didn't know came up behind me and he starts watching it with me and he goes, "Are they remaking Star Hustler?" Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Star Hustler.
I'm not familiar with it.
Star Hustler was a PBS show with an old, like an astronomer who looked like Paul Bearer from the WWF. He had like a mustache and he wore like a members only jacket. It was really low budget stuff. But they would have like the planet Saturn and him just standing on the rings of Saturn. And he'd be like, "Now remember, next month, Jupiter is in full bloom in the sky. So you're going to want to mark your calendar for that." And I nearly dropped my knees laughing because I thought I was the only guy who watched this shit. And this other guy that I'd never met before looked at Neil deGrasse Tyson walking around space and was like, "They're remaking Star Hustler."
Oh my God. That's so
Now you
great.
have to Google it when you get home because it's
First
ridiculous.
thing I'll do.
Yeah.
Well, how did he end up being the guy? Was there any other choice, or was it Neil deGrasse Tyson the whole time?
Well, but when I came in, he was already. It was actually Seth MacFarlane who had lunch one day with Neil and wanted to get involved in science somehow. And Neil said, "Well, we're trying to get this Cosmos show on the air."
It's like you could spend 6 years and get a PhD, or you could work on Cosmos.
And so Seth brought it to Fox, and then Seth eventually asked me to come on. And
Are you friends with Seth?
yeah, we've been friends a long time.
Oh my God.
How funny is he in real life? Just does he do the voices all the time?
No.
Have you had him do like a voicemail for you in Stewie's voice? Have you
No.
done that? Because that's what I
I'm
would do if
not.
I was friends with him.
No,
That's why I'm not friends with
probably
anybody
get
who does
the Shatner response. But I lost my train of thought. What I was going to say about we're doing.
Oh, you can't say that? All right, well,
Mysterious thing you can't talk about
I'll
happening.
stop you for 1 second. Seth MacFarlane, incidentally, dated Ashley Greene from Twilight. Nobody knows this. This is a secret I'm revealing to you right now. Guess what? Ashley Greene from Twilight did not know she was dating Seth MacFarlane for a whole week of them dating. For 1 week.
How did she not know?
What
She
do
just
you
thought
mean?
she had no idea. She thought he was a magician.
Oh, she didn't know what he
Oh,
was.
okay.
She
met
knew she was
him-
dating him. She didn't know who he was.
She knew she was
met
dating
him.
a
She
man.
knew she was
Okay.
dating a
But she
guy.
didn't- yeah.
She knew his name was Seth. She did not know Family Guy. Did not know did not watch the show. Was not like a huge Family Guy fan. Did not recognize his name from that, and dated him for 1 whole week. And a week into it, she goes, "Why do you have like so many like cartoons in your house?" He goes, "Because of the cartoon I do." And she goes, "What do you mean, the cartoon you do?" And he goes, "It's called Family Guy. I created a show called Family Guy." And she's like, "Oh." And he goes, "Did you not know who I was the whole time?" And she goes, I thought you were like a magician or something." And he was like, "Why? Why would you think that?" And she goes, "Well, you were wearing a tuxedo when I met you." That is a true story.
That's a fair. That's a
pretty
fair
good.
assessment
Refreshing,
to
though.
make.
God bless Ashley
How many
Greene.
people do you meet in tuxedos? Really?
Yeah, well, yeah. She
and they're
met him
either
like,
secret agents or magicians.
and it wasn't like at a party. She met him wearing a tuxedo, like in an office. Like he was wearing it at an office somewhere.
Now, to
So,
be fair, did he know who she was?
probably not. Probably
Yeah.
not.
By
Just-
the way, worth noting, Seth's a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh, wow.
That's how we met. And I mean, like, he really, and Next Gen especially.
Yeah.
In fact, he was in 2 episodes of Enterprise.
What?
Yep.
I didn't know that. Did
Find
you know
it.
that?
He,
I remember that he was in. I can't tell you which ones, but
he would play.
Find him, listeners.
He played an
and-
engineer, and he in one he didn't have any lines, but then I gave him some lines, and another one he gets yelled at by the chief engineer for something.
How did that happen? Was that just?
He was a fan and thought it would be fun to put him on. He was also in Flash Forward.
Oh wow! Oh yeah!
He actually played a recurring character in that.
He's a very talented guy. That guy's amazing.
We should do a contest where, like, the first person who can send us a picture of him on Star Trek
Yes,
wins something.
absolutely.
Well, you can go. Yeah, you can find it online very easily.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Let's jump to Salem before we. I don't want to run out of time. You're about to go shoot the? Can I say that you're about to go shoot the finale of the season?
Yeah, we're filming our third season.
God, so that is a scary show. Does that kind of take you back to your horror roots?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to do horror, I finally I'm getting to do it. So I'm getting all my shit out.
Yeah.
And I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Oh, that's so much fun. What's that like? What's that set like? Is it a good?
We shoot in Louisiana. It's there's always something weird happening.
Yeah.
There's either sex or murder or something. It's a fun show.
How did you come up with that? How did that come to be?
Fox called me and said we have this writer who's never done TV, but it's an interesting take on the Salem witch trials, and I read his treatment for it, and I realized this guy was absolutely brilliant.
Wow!
And I wanted to work with him, and we developed a show together. And it's when is this show airing?
I'm not sure.
In about 3 weeks.
Okay, so if you don't mind me saying,
yeah, please.
Salem third season premieres Halloween week.
Oh, very awesome!
And if you haven't seen it, check it out.
Oh, it's such a badass.
Is it streaming anywhere?
Show.
Like which
season? The first 2 seasons are on Netflix.
Oh, great!
That's so great
right now.
So catch up now.
Yeah. God, Netflix has really changed the game a lot for television. Do you want to do more stuff with them? Have you wanted to develop something specifically for Netflix?
I would be happy to. I don't really. That's the studio's job to decide where stuff goes. I just make it up.
Have you ever done sci-fi comedy? Have you ever gotten into that?
It's funny you mention that. It's something that I'm probably going to be getting into relatively soon. Yeah.
Oh,
good,
cool.
Good.
Like, what do you think of Galaxy Quest, for example? Tim Allen. I mean,
awesome.
Yeah,
it's so
fantastic movie.
I remember I went to the premiere of that movie, and I thought this thing's going to be a massive hit. And it wasn't. And it wasn't.
It's kind of shocking that it didn't.
But it's become
it's a cult hit.
It's a huge cult hit. I heard a rumor that someone was going to do a TV show.
I've heard that there is a spinoff coming. But
Yeah. And there's a Broadway musical as well. There is a Galaxy Quest Broadway musical.
Yeah. It was. Wow. That's an amazing movie.
Now, what do you think of the thing about Star Trek is the fandom is so intense. And people love it, and there's fan fiction of all sorts, but also there are fan films that have been made where there are actual series, like there's Star Trek Continues, which is the continuing adventures of the original cast. There's about 4 episodes of that. And then there's, I forget the name of the one, but there's one that actually Tim Russ and George Takei have actually appeared in, where they reprise their roles or playing different characters. Like, do you have any thoughts on that as somebody who's created a lot of Star Trek, and you look at these people who are sort of amateurs, sort of trying to pick up different parts of these stories where they might have been left off and give some more stuff to the fan base? What do you think of those?
I think they're great. I mean, what's really mind blowing is how good the visual effects on these things. I'm like are amazing. But then they're the actors, the people playing the parts. You know, it's just not really.
They got to get the acting up to where the visual effects are.
They have Grant from Mythbusters plays Sulu in Star Trek Continues.
Really?
Grant Imahara. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's fascinating.
It's a subgenre.
And James Doohan's son plays Scotty in that one as well.
There is There is a new Star Trek show that's coming out to television, right? Is that happening?
It's in development now.
It's in development. Yeah.
Are you going to be a part of that?
I really can't be a part of it because I have my deals with 20th Century Fox, and that's CBS.
They're also pushing, by the way, Michael Dorn is pushing for the Worf Chronicles, which I'm also hoping might come about someday. And that's one that he's sort of been proposing as a show.
It's just Worf.
No.
It's a detective show.
It's a detective show. He's a jazz flutist, and it's great. It's just him, angry Worf jazz flutist that solves crimes. Let's make it. Let's make the show.
It's Worf as a member of the CHP. He's going back to his Chips routes. Michael Dorn.
Was he on Chips?
Yeah. Michael Dorn was on Chips.
Him and Eric Estrada solving crimes together.
I would watch
in
that
the future
with the Klingon makeup. Yeah.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic.
Did you ever appear in any of the Star Trek shows?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
No.
Little cameo here or there?
I did a cameo in a movie I did called First Contact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's a scene where Picard and Alfre Woodard escape into the holodeck, and I'm sitting in a booth and on camera as they walk by. The problem is when it airs and it's not letterbox.
If it's pan and scan, you're not out there.
I'm not in it.
Oh man!
Make sure to watch the letterbox version. Everything's 16 by now. Everybody has widescreen HD
Now
TVs
that was the movie that had a young Tom Hardy.
No. That was I didn't work on that one. That was Nemesis.
Nemesis. That's what. Okay.
But
that's when they got not as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a little thing we on this show like to call. What's your favorite breakfast cereal? What is your favorite breakfast cereal? Stop it. I'm sorry. Do you have a favorite breakfast cereal?
Life.
Yeah?
Life's a good one.
Oh, my God. Really?
Life, that's a good one.
Okay.
It has that strange. Is it vanilla? What is it?
Yeah,
it's got something.
That's
little
like
cinnamon-y,
and it stays crunchy. It has like these little vents in it, so it actually stays.
That's like
pretty
my
crunchy.
third favorite. After,
By the way, if I'm in the right mood, I will buy Lucky Charms and just eat the marshmallows straight out of the box.
They call that
best.
death. It's just death cereal. Just marshmallows. It's not
Steven
good for
doesn't believe me when I tell him that my favorite cereal is Grape Nuts.
Which is fucking bullshit. All right?
I'm with you.
Grape Nuts?
Come on.
My rank is Grape Nuts, Wheat Chex, Life, Rice Krispies. That's my top 4 right there.
Oh, my God.
Grape Nuts. You got to eat it fairly soon because they get.
You don't want them soggy. No, you got to eat them. And in fact, I just found. I was watching the old Tonight Show. They show them on Channel 5.2 and Antenna TV, Johnny Carson Tonight Show, and he had just talked on there. He was interviewing Buddy Rich at the time from like 1976 in this one episode. And he talked about how like they were going to have this guy who did Grape Nuts commercials in the 70s on, and how like the audience applauded more for this guy from the Grape Nuts commercials.
Yul Gibbons.
Yul Gibbons, yeah.
Wow.
And I'd never heard of him, and I looked him up, and I started watching these commercials on YouTube the other day, and it's just he's like, I'm known as a nature expert. Look at this cat of 9 tails. Yes, you can eat it. But instead of eating that, you should eat grape nuts. It's all natural. It's got that nutty crunch. And it's like,
oh my God!
I was just like, this is an amazing commercial. I didn't even know about those. Yeah,
This is the world we were born into.
yes.
Mike, what's your favorite breakfast cereal? What do you eat?
It no longer exists. It was a cereal called Quisp. With
I
a
like
Q.
Quisp.
Oh,
Yeah, that was
And
good.
it was little sugar corn bowls. And the genius was when you poured milk on them, you had a bunch of little bowls of milk to eat.
God, what a
And
brilliant!
it was delicious.
Did you pour more cereal in the little bowls?
No, you would have
Like
to get,
one Rice Krispie.
mini Quisp or something like that.
Yeah,
That didn't-
just like
we didn't have the technology for what you wanted.
it's like Russian dolls of cereal.
I'm pretty
bowls.
sure Mini Quisp was a Star Trek character as well. Not positive.
And, right behind it is just plain old Captain Crunch.
Oh God!
Doesn't that scrape the roof of your mouth?
What is with that?
It
Why does
does.
it do that? Is that
Because it's really rough and hard.
It's painful to eat.
it is painful to eat?
Deliciousness sometimes requires
Comes at a cost. Yeah.
I got a true story for you about the origin of Captain Crunch.
Oh, yeah, I love this
This is some real stuff. Do you know Jay Ward Studios, the guys who did Bullwinkle, Rocky Bullwinkle and stuff? So one of their artists from Jay Ward Studios got a phone call from the
U.S. military.
yes, and they said we would like you to come in, and we have a cereal that we're marketing to soldiers. And it was like a breakfast food company that was working with the military, and they were like, "We're making a breakfast cereal for the military. We want you to try it out." And he tried it out, and he was like, "Oh God, it's horrible! It cuts the whole roof of your mouth. It's like sliced up my tongue. It's horrible. What is this?" And they go, "Well, we're trying to come up with a name for it. What do you think?" And he goes, "I don't know, like army like
Colonel
Army Crunch, something like that. Like, and they were like, keep going. And he was like, I don't know, Sergeant Crunch, Captain Crunch, something. They were like, Captain Crunch, that could work. And they were like, can you draw a Captain Crunch? And he was like, sure. And he drew the drawing of Captain Crunch. And they said, thanks. Here's $100. Bye. And he left. And then he said about a year later, he walked into a grocery store and his drawing in full color now was on the box. There was no contracts. There was no suing. There was none of that stuff. And he said, he's in his 80s now, and he was like, still to this day, I can't fucking look at that box. I walk in, I see it, and it always gets me. It's like, $100.
Do you want to hear me tie Captain Crunch back into technology?
Please.
Do it right now.
Oh my God, make it happen.
Did you know back in the 60s and 70s, before there was hacking, there was phreaking, which is people used to hack the phone system. And in a Captain Crunch box, they gave out a whistle that was the captain's whistle. And it happened to actually operate at the right frequency where you could blow it into a phone and it would unlock the phone so you could like make free long distance calls and all kinds of party calls.
Oh my God.
And that's the kind of stuff that Steve Wozniak was into before he started making Apple computers. He was one of those phone freakers, and all these guys that would get on these phone lines, they had just ongoing with like people from Japan all over the world talking about how to hack the phone system. And they all just got this whistle and they would just blow it into the phone and it had the right frequency and it would unlock all the features. And that's why one of the main first hackers was this guy, Captain Crunch. And then 59 hertz or 59,000 hertz was sort of it's like an underground like clue that you know all about the hacking scene.
Right?
Wow.
Amazing.
Bring it back to technology.
And that's why Matt Walker is here.
That's why I'm the nerd on the show.
All right. This has been an absolute honor and a pleasure having you here.
It was fun.
What Comic Cons do you go to? Are you a con guy? Have you been to any of these?
I've been going to Comic Con for a long time, and I'll be there with my Salem cast
at San Diego.
In San Diego,
Awesome.
We're definitely doing a panel, maybe some other things, I go every year.
That's so awesome. We'll be down there. And
will you?
I think we may be doing
this show there.
The show there. Which would be
great!
Really cool.
Yeah.
So
great.
Yeah, if you're around,
I'll come say hi.
Yeah, please. Oh my God, it'd be
and we'll
amazing.
come say hi at the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. It's the 50th, right?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Like everybody's.
I heard this is the one where everybody's coming back that hasn't been in years and years. So
yeah,
that's outrageous.
Yeah,
I love
you
it.
should. This last summer was the first time the entire Voyager cast was together on stage at the same time, and actually being civil to each other. But that's for another time.
Now, can I ask you a question about that? Actually, when 7 of 9 came on, it was when Kes left on the show. And was there sort of like, was it decided for her that she was going to leave, or did she leave on her own and then you brought in this new character 7 of 9, or how did that work out?
We wanted to bring in a new character. The Jennifer Lean's character, it kind of run its course, and we needed to make room.
And her character was like going to die anyways.
Yeah, and we needed to make room for a new cast member. You know, there's a budget.
You only have so many dressing rooms.
Exactly. So that's what happened.
No, she's so great. Jerry Ryan, who's a friend also and is super cool. Amazing. Please let people know where they can find you on the internet so they can find you and look you up.
If you want them to.
If you want them to.
Where they can
What's your Twitter?
Twitter is at Brannon Braga is my Twitter. Please follow me on Twitter. I want more followers.
We can get you more followers. We can make that happen.
And I'm also on Facebook. Those are the only 2 social media things I do. But I like staying in touch. You know, staying in touch with the fans is a constant pleasure. You know, and it's a lot. It's really great to go to these conventions and just answer questions on Twitter and stuff. It's really
that's the best.
Well, I just followed you, and I have to tell you I called Steven. I was so excited when Rick Berman followed me back on Twitter like a year ago, and I was like, Rick Berman just followed me on
He was very excited. Mike, where can they find you on the internet?
I am all over the internet at Mike Black Attack.
It sounds so gross when you say it like that.
You can find me somewhere on the internet.
I'm on the internet.
I'm on the internet, pornhub.com.
Oh, God. No, don't give them a shout out.
Please don't.
No. All right.
Don't look for me there, everyone.
No, please
Because
don't.
what if you find me and I'll feel terrible?
It's going to be the worst. Matt, what about you?
You can go to funnymatt.com, or if you don't like what I did today, just go to mattwalkersucks.com and let me know there.
Oh, God. And those are terrific.
That's a real
They're
place.
real stuff. Yeah. And you can always get me at Stephen Glickman, STPHEN Glickman on Twitter and Instagram. This was an absolute honor and a pleasure.
Had fun.
It was really cool. I'm happy I didn't stutter a bunch and get super nervous. No, it was super cool talking to you, man. Thanks
Likewise.
so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Oh.